It began in March 1938 with Hitler's invasion of Austria, and the United States joined the war after the Japanese attack on its Pacific Fleet. It lasted for 6 years and witnessed the first use of atomic weapons in history, resulting in the deaths of 17 million military personnel and many more civilians. The apparent causes of World War II may seem limited to the actions of Nazi Germany, its occupation of parts of Europe, and its aggression towards various countries. However, most scholars consider these events as mere consequences resulting from the underlying causes of the war. Many researchers consider World War II as the legitimate offspring of World War I, a natural result of the post-World War I settlements that reshaped the map of the world, especially in Europe. They enumerate a number of reasons, including the punitive provisions imposed on Germany by the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, which resulted in Germany losing 12.5% of its territory, 12% of its population, around 15% of its agricultural production, 10% of its industry, and 74% of its iron ore production. Additionally, Germany was burdened with significant reparations payments to the Allies, which further limited its military capabilities. The treaty stipulated that the German army should not exceed 100,000 soldiers. They also cite the emergence of Nazism in Germany in January 1933, and fascism in Italy in October 1922, as another factor. The alliance formed between them, known as the Axis powers, was later joined by Japan. Hitler's occupation of Austria in March 1938, Czechoslovakia in the following year, and Poland in September 1939, as well as Italy's threat to invade Albania, were direct causes for Britain and France declaring war on the Axis powers. The war in Europe escalated, and the German army made advances on all European fronts, occupying most countries and entering Paris. However, their invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941 exposed their vulnerability and diverted their attention from the British forces. The United States initially remained out of the war, but imposed an oil embargo on Japan and restricted the export of iron to the country. In response, on December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the American fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. This attack led to the United States entering the war against the Axis powers. In the 1820s, the United States adopted the Monroe Doctrine, also known as the Principle of Neutrality. This doctrine was announced by President James Monroe in 1823, and emphasized the need for European powers to refrain from extending their colonial influence into the Americas. It also stated that the United States would not interfere in European affairs or relationships. The war witnessed numerous battles that were significant turning points, shaping its course and outcomes. These include the battles of Stalingrad, Midway, El Alamein, the Normandy invasion, and the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These battles had a profound impact on the war, altering its trajectory and leaving lasting historical significance. The Battle of Stalingrad is considered one of the most important major battles of World War II. It took place in the city of Stalingrad, which later became known as Volgograd, during the German military campaign against the Soviet Union. The battle lasted for approximately 6 months, from August 1942 to February 1943. Germany initially bombed the city extensively and then entered it after turning it into ruins. Fierce fighting erupted within the city with the Red Army. The Germans managed to subdue most of the city's areas, but failed to break the last defensive lines of the Red Army on the western bank of the Volga River. In November 1942, the Red Army launched simultaneous offensives and successfully encircled around 250,000 German forces. With the Germans unable to provide supplies to their troops, their forces collapsed, and Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus surrendered on February 2, 1943, along with the majority of the Sixth Army. The human losses in the battle amounted to approximately 1 million individuals, making it one of the bloodiest battles in the history of warfare. The Battle of Midway took place in June 1942. 6 months after the Japanese attack on the American fleet at Pearl Harbor. During the battle, The U.S. Navy successfully repelled the Imperial Japanese Navy's assault on the Midway Atoll and inflicted significant damage on the Japanese fleet. Military historian John Keegan regarded it as the most stunning and decisive blow in the history of naval warfare. The victory at Midway marked a turning point in the Pacific theater of World War II, as it weakened the Japanese Navy and shifted the strategic initiative to the United States. The Battle of El Alamein took place in November 1942 on Egyptian soil between the German and Italian forces led by Erwin Rommel and the British forces led by Bernard Montgomery. It was one of the most significant tank battles in history. After the German forces' previous victories in the desert battles, the British forces were able to defeat the Axis forces in this battle and drive them out. The renowned German commander Rommel was defeated, signaling a turning point in the fortunes of the Axis powers. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces led by General Dwight D. Eisenhower conducted a military landing in northern France on the beaches of Normandy. Over 200,000 soldiers were deployed, mostly from the United States, with additional troops from Britain, Canada, and France. This operation, known as D-Day, was the largest military amphibious assault of the 20th century. It succeeded in liberating the region from German occupation. The casualties on both sides amounted to 3,000 killed and 6,000 wounded, captured, or missing. Following the defeat suffered by the Germans in this battle, the Allies entered Germany in December 1944. Italian rebels executed Mussolini and hung him by his feet from a lamppost in Milan. Hitler committed suicide on April 30, 1945, and Germany surrendered. Despite Germany's surrender, the Japanese continued to resist, and the war did not come to a final end until the bombing of the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki with atomic bombs, marking the first use of atomic weapons in history. The first bomb, codenamed Little Boy, was dropped on the city of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. It was a uranium bomb weighing over 4.5 tons, and although it missed the exact target slightly, it detonated approximately 800 feet away. Within 1 minute of its detonation, it claimed the lives of 66,000 people and injured 69,000. The second bomb, codenamed Fat Man, was dropped on the city of Nagasaki on August 9, 1945. It was a plutonium bomb that exploded in the heart of Nagasaki. In an instant, 39,000 people were killed, and 25,000 residents of the city were injured. Following these devastating events, Japan signed the Instrument of Surrender unconditionally on September 2, 1945. 3 days later, the American flag was raised over Tokyo. The human cost of World War II was staggering, with approximately 17 million military personnel and countless civilians losing their lives. One of the significant outcomes was the victory of the Allied powers over the Axis powers. However, the use of atomic bombs by the United States to force Japan's surrender opened the door to a heated race to possess weapons of mass destruction. Politically, the war reshaped the global power structure, with the United States emerging as a key player in the new international order. The establishment of the United Nations aimed to solidify this new map of power. Through the United Nations, the United States sought to counter the rising European powers extending their influence overseas, particularly Britain and France, and the expanding influence of the Soviet Union. The international organization provided the United States with a mechanism to compete with these giants that needed to be contained within the framework of the international community. To diminish the European role, the United States encouraged the right to self-determination for colonies. The Marshall Plan, aimed at rebuilding war-ravaged Europe, also helped maintain these countries indebted to the United States and contributed to American influence in shaping political systems and direct post-war effects in Europe.